Hi everyone. So today I am going to pick RC from one of the most difficult exams of this country, the dreaded ZAT. I've loved ZAT verbal like anything. I mean, if you've attended my critical reasoning classes, you would realize how critical reasoning is super important for reading comprehension. And I love how ZAT picks up different topics and pushes your mind to the brim. Perfect. So let's start the proceedings for the day. What I call fast political thinking is driven by simplified moral frames. So probably I am talking about simplified moral frames guiding what? Guiding your fast political thinking. I ensure that I would also write the word fast here. Fast political thinking, correct? These moral frames, I'm talking about these moral frames, give us the sense that those who agree with us have the right answer, while those who disagree are unreasonable or worse. So again, are these moral frames right, wrong? Again, remember, you don't have to get into that. You just have to assume that moral frames are giving you the sense that people who agree with us have the right answer. This is primarily what we all end up doing most of these times. Each moral frame sets up an axis of favorable and unfavorable. Makes sense? Someone will have a right answer because he agrees with you. Someone might have a unfavorable answer because he doesn't agree with you. Progressives use the oppressor-oppressed axis. So what I'll do here is, because I'm talking about oppressor-oppressed axis, I'll quickly make a keynote of it because I think the paragraph is now going to be a little specific. Progressives view most favorably those groups that can be regarded as oppressed or standing with the oppressed. I think the name itself should give you a hint: oppressor versus an oppressed. And they view most unfavorably those groups that can be regarded as oppressors. Conservatives, so probably here we had progressives, here we have conservatives, use the civilization barbarism axis. Conservatives view most favorably the institutions that they believe constrain and guide people towards civilized behavior. So civilized to conservative. And they view most unfavorably those people who see they as trying to tear down such institutions. So oppressor oppressed is about whom? They are about progressives. And this is nothing but about someone who's being oppressed or someone who's an oppressor. Whereas conservatives do what? So conservatives look upon the civilization barbarism axis, and their civilization is something around institutions that they believe constrain, correct? So this is important for us. Libertarians use the liberty coercion axis. So we have someone called as libertarians as well. What do? They use a liberty coercion axis, correct? Libertarians view most favorably those people who defer to decisions that are made on the basis of personal choice and voluntary agreement. And they view most unfavorably those people who favor governmental interventions that restrict personal choice. I mean, liberty is all about freedom. So I could probably say liberty is more about a personal freedom here, right? So the smallest summary of this particular paragraph is we're talking about three axes. One is by progressives, the other one is by conservatives, and the third one is by libertarians. I can come back to the paragraph if I'm asked a specific information about a specific view. Otherwise, I think I've done fairly strong keyword analysis here. Let's go to this paragraph. So it says, if you have a dominant axis, I suggest that you try to learn the languages spoken by those who use the other axis. So probably it's talking about if you have a dominant axis, that you believe that someone who agrees with you is right and someone who doesn't agree with you is incorrect. He's saying, I suggest that you try to learn the languages spoken by those who use the other axis. Don't worry, learning other languages won't make it easy for others to convert you to their point of view. By the same token, it will not make it easy to convert others to your point of view, right? So it's a vice versa. It's just trying to say that you please try to learn the languages spoken by those who do not necessarily agree with you. However, so it probably going to talk about an advantage here. You may become aware of assumptions your side makes that others might legitimately question, and therefore you might be able to defend your perspective better. I mean, I could probably conclude this because you could anticipate assumptions that might legitimately attack you, and then you might preempt those assumptions, so you could defend your perspective better. That's maybe an outcome I might be willing to look at if there is a conclusion question. What learning the other languages can do is, again, yet another advantage is to enable you to understand how others think about political issues. Instead of resorting to the theory that people with other views are crazy or stupid or evil, you may concede that they have a coherent point of view. In fact, their point of view could be just as coherent as yours. So the author is trying to analyze it. The problem is that those people apply their point of view in circumstances where you're fairly sure that it is not really appropriate. So is the author assuming that there are places where your perspective is actually correct? Yes. And is the author also assuming that there are perspectives and situations where your perspective might not be as correct as theirs would be? Yes. And the author is also assuming that there could be a perspective where, again, so if I wanted to put all of this into a small bucket, you could be better than they. That's one. Second could be you could be equal to they. And the third one could be that you could be less than they. Correct? So he's saying that this is fine. This is something for you to learn. Unfortunately, they apply their constraint where you're already sure that it is not really appropriate. So fairly analytical paragraphs now. Let's go to the last paragraph here. Consider that there may be situations in which one frame describes the problem much better than the other. So maybe talking about an example here. For example, I believe that the civil rights movement in the United States is best described using the progressive, the one around oppressor oppressed, if I remember. He's written this. In the 1950s and the early 1960s, the people who had the right model were the people who were fighting for black Americans. So something around oppressor oppressed is making sense here. To have true voting rights, equal access to housing, and an end to the Jim Crow laws. The civilization barbarism, which was, I think, the control of the government, and the liberty coercion, which was about personal freedom, did not provide the best insight into the issue. So I think paragraph number 1 was general context, where we said moral frameworks define your political ideologies and all that stuff. Paragraph number 2 was about progressives, then it was about conservatives, then it was about libertarians, right? Paragraph number 3 and paragraph number 4 were about suggestive, where you're saying you should also try to understand others, right? So understand others was majorly driven around paragraph 3 and 4, and paragraph 5 was probably saying that one axis or one frame in fact could be better than other frames for different set of problems or situations, and we were given an example of it. Fairly straightforward summary of each of the paragraphs, and if I have to read a question and go back to the paragraph, I'm sure you can go back to a specific area. Let's look at this. Which one the following best describes the civilization barbarism? I think it was about behavior, if you remember, the constraining of behavior, and barbarism might not have favored people who constrained the behavior. Remember, there is a slight difference between behavior and personal freedom. The way we are trained to behave affects our peace in life. Not really. Peace was not talked about. Every society has to have a harmonious mix of civilized and the barbaric for it to survive. I am really sure it was not this suggestive. Some people are barbaric and should be restrained from public life. This is one option that in my classes I call this as a option. Entirely incorrect. Government should play a very heavy role in maintaining law and order. Again, this was not suggestive. The paragraph was about you should be learning other languages so that you can defend better, but it was never about what should the government do. It is how you behave, not who you are, that makes you acceptable. And that is, I think, where civilization barbarism excess was suggesting and taking me to, that you need to be guided or you do not need to be guided. And it is not about who you are, but maybe how you behave. So the correct answer here would be option number 5. Is that easy? I'm so happy that I would probably be going to an XLRI, BM or an HR. And verbal is tricky here. Which of the following best explains the author's usage of the term moral frame? Moral frames guiding you, and then there were a couple of examples. The frames give those who believe in them the right to question others' behavior. I think it was not about questioning others' behavior. It was about assuming that what you think is right and what the other things who do not agree with you are unfavorable. I might want to keep this option on hold, but not with a very happy regard. It makes easy for the believers to declare others as wrong. It was not about declaring. A frame is a belief and cannot be rationally explained. No, he was rationally explaining by using those different axes. what is right to the believer is wrong to those who do not share that belief? No. I think what is right to the believer is right to those who believes in it would have been a better framing. The frames define what the believer believes as right or wrong. I think very clearly this was being implied. And if you look at option number 1 versus an option number 5, I would clearly see that option number 5 is a much better play of words in terms of what the author's usage of the term moral frames was as compared to option number 1. So I will eliminate this, and I would see option number 5 is my correct answer. Perfect. So 5 for first two. Let's look at the last question on this. Which of the following can best be concluded from the above passage? Correct. So issues can be solved by looking at them from the right axis and questioning the assumptions. Maybe I would rather keep this option on hold. Knowing why you think the way you think enables you to understand others' perspective. Very clearly, this was about slightly the more conclusion than about questioning the assumptions. It was about anticipating the assumptions and maybe defending them well. So in the eyes of one, I can pick option number 2 for now. The assumptions we hold leads to a dominant axis. Could be, but this is not a conclusion if you see. Most controversial issues in the world can be simplified into 3 axes. Not necessarily. Just because the author has talked about 3 axes doesn't mean these are the 3 axes. Most problems in the world are because of applying the wrong axis to a particular problem. Again, the author was being very generic and the author was not trying to say this. So I would have probably come down to picking one between 1 and 2, and very clearly I would have said that 2 seems to be a slightly broader conclusion in terms of solution seeking as compared to option number 1. I love doing ZAT passages and I would probably be bringing more ZAT passages as well alongside CAT passages. I hope you like the video, and please do share, subscribe and comment and put your doubts in the comment boxes. One of the team members or I'll be more than happy to respond on it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys in the next session. Thank you.